All right, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me? How's the volume?
It's good, good.
Alrighty.
So this is my first one, so I'm not really sure what the typical format for a call out is, if it's just a regular debate or if there's anything special.
Not sure here either. you make your statements, and I'll challenge and go against whatever your statements you have.
All right. So basically, the belief that I'm talking about today is manga should be taught along with other forms of writing in each grade school level. And I believe it has 3 points as to why this should be.
Okay, one thing I would before you go, what you really need to do is, for the uninformed, describe what manga is.
Okay. So manga is a form of writing that originates mainly in Japan. And a lot of mangas have become popularized in Western media, especially Dragon Ball Z or Naruto. And they're similar to what we consider comic books, but they read from right to left instead of left to right.
Okay.
So I believe that manga should be taught with other forms of writing. One, to encourage diversity in the types of writings that we learn about in our schooling systems. Two, I believe that it is a way to help kids with learning disabilities, specifically reading disabilities, feel accepted in reading communities, and it can help them further their education. And third, I think it provides a lot of different outlets that we can't teach normally through school. So it provides a bunch of different storylines, and it opens a portal to those storylines.
Okay. Is that pretty much it for what you've got for opening?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I got for opening right now.
Okay. I think in general, the proposition that you're saying is that we need to teach manga along with other forms of writing in each grade level school. I would just basically point out that in general, I completely and totally disagree with the need to throw in far more items in the school system. Right now, the school systems are almost a complete failure for a large number of people. We're spending more money than ever before per student, even after you adjust for inflation. It's probably about double what we used to spend 40 or 50 years ago. And yet the results are worse than in the past. We have high dropout rates. We send kids off to college, supposedly the best of the best, and yet they show up at college and they're not ready. University of Washington reports that the majority of their entering freshmen aren't prepared to take college math and college English classes. They have to take remedial math and English classes, which adds to the time that they'll be in school. It adds to the cost because there's additional tuition. And of course, it potentially adds to a huge debt load that's burdened on them. Our government schools are failing, and the fix is not by dumping one more requirement on them. It is slimming down and getting back to the basics. First question I'd have, a couple of questions I'd have for you is, are you a teacher? Do you know a teacher? Have you had any teaching experience?
I have experience in this, aiding a special education classroom, and I'm currently in my senior year of college for special education.
Okay.
On a couple partnerships, and I've been in classrooms before, but I haven't had my own class yet.
Yep. Okay. I just wondered because it's like you're either a teacher or you know a teacher, or you might potentially be gifted enough to become a teacher of teachers, because some ideas are so stupid they could have only been thought up by a liberal elite. And this manga, that fits in that category. You probably have a PhD in liberal elitism.
Mm.
Now, by the way, when you talk about special ed, I don't dispute that there may be a benefit to a few select students, in the same way that you might have pet therapy that reaches out and helps disabled children, children with special needs. But if we wanted to put pet therapy in the entire school system for everybody, it would be bloated, inefficient, expensive, and it would waste valuable time. So the manga might be a good thing for very, very select few people, but to make it as a requirement, we don't have the time or the money.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from. However, realistically, it would be adding one book, and so the cost of one book for grade levels. You're not taking care of a dog. You're not getting special materials. It's just a book, and schools are often buying new books each year to change with children's growing interests. So, like when I was in school, they just started teaching Harry Potter. Now my sister's in school, and they're not teaching Harry Potter anymore. They're teaching Divergent, and so they upgrade their teaching curriculum with what kids need in the world. And I don't think that this is an unfair upgrade.
What sort of math and science are beneficial from manga?
So there are science and math-based mangas. There are ones where you do need to use that, where it does teach that type of information. I know one of my favorite ones is Full Metal Alchemist, and where it is a lot of non-science, there is a lot of science backed into it, and you end up coming out with a little bit of understanding of some scientific properties, like human construction.
For K through 8, I think that would be just totally over the heads of any kids, unless you're teaching real math and real science.
I mean,
okay, let's go back and take a look at some of the basics. Okay, you get entering kindergarten students. Okay, do you know the difference between phonics and whole word method?
Yes, I do.
Okay, why don't you explain it real quick?
So basically, phonics is the theory of breaking down, teaching words by breaking them down into their roots and whatnot, their roots and suffixes and bases, and teaching that way, whereas whole word is teaching whole words at a time. And so teaching cat and bat and the whole word rather than focusing on the suffix and the roots and the prefixes.
And which method is more prominent in schools these days?
A whole word method is.
Right. And the problem with whole word method is if you take a look at, say, ancient Chinese and Japanese writings, they use things like kanji characters. And so you have this hieroglyphic type thing that represented a word. And so in order to read, you would have to memorize 1,000 different characters, and your vocabulary is limited to those 1,000. Some new character comes in, you don't know what it is. Well, here's the thing. When you teach kids to memorize a CAT as cat, it's a hieroglyphic to them if they've not learned to decode the individual letters. And here's the interesting thing they find is, suppose you change the font or you capitalize from a letter. When you change stuff, they no longer recognize that as well. When you teach kids the alphabet sounds, when you teach the phonics method, you teach them how to decode, and suddenly their vocabulary is not 1,000 characters, but 10,000s of words. And a lot of child psychologists and scientists have believed that whole word method sets children up for failure. They do not learn to read properly. They can become dyslexic because they get confused. It gets very frustrating when they look at this big word and they haven't figured out how to decode it. And because we've gotten away from phonics, we've crippled generations of children. Now, there are smart kids that learn this stuff anyway. They start intuitively, or their parents teach them. But when a school system goes out and teaches whole word, it'd be like going to medical school and you have the current physicians teaching new students, new medical students, how to use leeches and bloodletting and treat George Washington by cutting and bleeding his arm until he runs out of blood and he dies. It is inefficient, it's stupid, it's a waste of money, and it sets children up for failures. And the kanji characters is very much like whole word. You're going to cripple a child. It's like, we're going to teach you swimming, but first we want you to put on 20-pound boots and a vest that weighs 20 pounds. Now, jump in the water over your head and start swimming. You have set them up for failure. You need to teach the basics. If you look and take a look and see what we did 50 years ago, we spent less money, we got better results. And now you want to add another burden and not change the existing things that are totally broken? Give me a break.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and I do agree with your position on whole word versus phonics. But I do believe, I think there's a problem with comparing the two when coming to manga, because manga at that young age would be as simple as, there are manga for kids that age that the teacher would read no different than picture books. So I don't really understand where the debate is coming in there. It's not manga in the Western world. It's not read using kanji for the most part. It's read using English words with English translations. And so I understand your points with the kanji and phonics and whole word, but that's not exactly the case, especially with teaching it at a younger level. As they got to higher levels, they may come across words or phrases that are unique to Japan or unique to China or South Korea or wherever the literature is coming from. But that's no different than reading other world literatures. We were expected to read Crime and Punishment in our school systems, and there are phrases in there that are unique to Russia. It's no different than that.
Somehow I feel you have failed to make a compelling case of why, when we have an existing school system that is failing, and you take a look at the graduation rates down. Students that graduate, you got cases where students graduate and they can't read their diploma. Mm-hmm. Okay, you've got kids that graduate and they go to college and they're set up for failure. Okay, you've got the SAT, the Princeton that runs the SAT tests. They've changed the way they grade it so that they've basically added 150 points, so that a perfect score 800 40 years ago, now take 150 off of that 1450. Well, a 1450 then would now be 1600 today. So they've inflated the grades so that the students don't look as bad. The teachers are not held accountable. You can't fire bad teachers. You put kids into the system and they're indoctrinated and not taught. They don't learn how to read because you teach them crappy ways. You don't teach them phonics and how to decode. You don't teach them good math skills. You don't teach them how to balance a checkbook. You don't teach them the Constitution that shows how the government is supposed to operate. Okay, you don't want them to be really educated voters and take a look at how much that is happening in Washington, D.C. is a violation of the Constitution. Oh, no, there's plenty of things that we should be doing and are not. But no, let's bring in manga because that'll fix everything. Will it help them get better jobs when they graduate? Will it help them get through college better? Once again, you may have a rare child that special needs or whatever, that manga will appeal to them stuff. But for the most part, our school systems can't do the basics, and we're going to lard on another burden on them. Wow.
I disagree with a couple of your points, but I'm going to stick to the manga with school systems, and I'm going to talk about one of your points about dropout rates. One of the major reason for dropout rates is a type of behavior called escape/avoidance of failure behavior. It's when they're taught from a young age that through grades and other systems that they're going to fail at this thing, and nobody's going to be able to help them because they don't have the prerequisite skills. So whether through whole word method and not being able to properly decode things and that affecting their later grades, or being taught shittily in math and not being able to prosper in that, they start to develop feelings that they're just not going to be able to accomplish it, so why the fuck am I here? One of the things with manga that is a little different than other forms of literature is it does rely on basic methods of reading. Most of it is through pictures. So you can pick up a book. You can pick up a book of manga, and you can start to get the basic storyline by just looking at the pictures. So I can pick up a book and there be no text in it, or I can't be able to understand the text, but I can still get the basic grasp of the storyline, and I can follow along with the rest of the class. And that'll encourage me as a student, and we have seen in studies that if they can follow along and they have a sense of achievement, that encourages them to go farther, and it is ultimately one of the best forms to get them back on track.
Well, what you're doing is you're defining expectations way, way down. Okay, what you have to take a look at is that if you go back 5, 6, 7, 8,000 years, a lot of communication was done by writing, and it was by drawing pictures on cave walls. It was Egyptian hieroglyphics. Okay, it's very hard to have advanced concepts without being able to write the way we write. And of course, the other thing that would hamper it was the availability of paper, the printing press, that sort of stuff. Okay, we evolved to where you've got books that are 1,000 pages long. You've got encyclopedias, 20 volumes. You've got vast, complex items, and we are dumbing down society by getting people used to going back to hieroglyphics with emoticons and very, very short ideas, tweets, 140 characters or less. And we're not teaching people how to express complex ideas because it takes more than 140 characters. It takes more than a few emoticons. You know, if we teach some people how to handle War and Peace, okay, if we teach people, Moby Dick and a lot of other stuff, people start being able to understand big, vast concepts. The graphic novels, the kanji type stuff, your manga type stuff, that is suitable to help aid and assist the people who cannot keep up with the people that would be successful. But that forces us to accept one thing that we should be, and that is tracking. We've given up. It's evil to have a fast track for smart kids and a medium track, a slow track, because, the fast kids, they're going to be very successful and very smart. And somehow the school system says that's evil. Let's put them all together in the same class, and let's force the fast kids to go at the slow pace where they're bored and twiddling their thumbs. And everybody will go as fast as the slowest kid. Everybody will be dumbed down. We won't teach War and Peace and Moby Dick and advanced concepts to the fast advanced people and giving them ready. We'll go to graphic novels and manga. We'll keep everybody dumbed down. That is so harmful for society.
Okay, so with that, manga is like any other form of literature. It's just like mysteries or classics, where they do go up in readability. There are mangas that have more.
But it still centers around graphic novel type stuff. That's the closest equivalent, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you can find tremendously abridged. I mean, you get War and Peace, 1,000 pages. You brought it up, so I'll keep mentioning War and Peace, 1,000 pages, and you can make a graphic novel that may be 50 or 60 pages of cartoon drawing, and you've distilled down, you've got the basic plot line, but you've distilled it down where it's nothing left of substance. You've dumbed it down, and that's what manga does. That's what graphic novels do. It may help the person who would otherwise not read.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you mentioned Harry Potter. Okay, Harry Potter, they're big, thick books. If you did graphic novels on them, you'd lose an awful lot of them too. We need kids reading big books. We need kids reading complex ideas. We need people to understand that you should be able to write at a drop of a hat a 1,200 word essay on a point for or against an argument. They should be able to write a chapter of a book on a complex idea if they're going to be useful, productive citizens. But we get too many people that get through high school
Mm-hmm.
and never read another book because we haven't stressed the importance of it. Yeah, they'll watch TV. Yeah, they'll pick up the graphic novels, or they'll watch movies based on graphic novels.
Mm-hmm.
But we have lost the essence of what causes a society to progress and grow and advance.
I understand your point there. However, when people are functioning in the statistics for people that never pick up a book, again, graphic novels and manga are considered books. So with that, they are still not picking up those after graduation. And even we can both agree that they have at least some basic level of content in them. They can express ideas. They can express extreme emotions or very interesting concepts. It's not.
I don't agree with you on that. I think that the manga and graphic novels are not much different than Egyptian hieroglyphics or caveman paintings on walls. Okay, you cannot express complex ideas. You cannot express complex thoughts. Okay, it's just the most rudimentary, the most fundamental stuff.
I don't think you're. Have you ever picked one up?
I've seen graphic novels. No, I've not ever picked up. Before you posted the manga,
Mm-hmm.
I never knew what that was. I did a little bit of research on it. I pulled up articles on manga. I saw examples of manga,
Mm-hmm.
and but it's like cartoon books, comic books. It's graphic novels. It's something that if parents if parents buy comic books for their kids, if parents buy graphic novels and manga for their kids, and it's just like anime type stuff on TV, so long as it doesn't interfere with the primary things that are necessary to get kids properly educated. They need to learn how to read properly. They need to learn math skills. They need to learn basic science skills. We've got too many people that become college age. They may major in something like ethnic studies, and they don't even have the ability to do math beyond algebra.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll listen to media people tell them stuff, and they cannot do critical reasoning. They cannot do critical thinking. They will buy into whatever line the media chooses to push. And it makes it a lot easier because you get votes by appealing to emotion rather than appealing to facts. They don't want facts debated because the facts may not be on their side. And we've got a society full of people who cannot really debate facts. If you talk about nuclear power, whether we should have nuclear power or not have nuclear power, okay, the facts are never really discussed in great detail. They're avoided. It's emotion. Oh, nuclear power, it's scary, it's dangerous. And most of the people that, I'm against nuclear power, it's based on emotion and not facts and reason. And we haven't taught kids through high school how to understand facts, how to be able to weigh in the balance these ideas and come to a decision as to whether somebody is making up facts or it's relying on emotion. And so our school systems are horribly failing right now, and adding one more burden that does nothing to improve it is, it's just a dumb idea.
I mean, you keep saying burden. However, I don't really feel that it is a burden. It's nothing more than removing one book and putting another in, which happens every single year. Since I've already
and much to the detriment. I mean, we're spending time in some schools now teaching kindergartners how to accept transgenderism, and you talk about something that's totally devoid of science and it's based on emotion.
Not devoid of science. I've actually.
It is totally devoid of science because there are two genders, and a boy with an X and Y chromosome in every cell of his body except for the gametes, and a girl who's in every cell of her body XX except for gametes. You cannot mutilate their body, give them different hormones, and suddenly they're the other gender. No, child psychologists say that transgenderism is child abuse. Okay, it is child abuse, and telling a 5 or 6 year old that, oh, don't worry, Johnny, you can be Jill if you want. That's abuse, because maybe when they're 10 or 12 years old, if you said, hey, do what you want and have fun playing, but you're still a boy. No matter what happens, you're a boy. We can't do anything to change you to girl. You'll never be a girl. You'll never be able to bear children. Every cell in your body is an X and Y. And in fact, if we give you female hormones, we may set you up for medical problems. Okay, if we taught them that, we would be making the gay, lesbian, transgendered community upset because they want to change science. And we're spending time in kindergarten and first grade and second grade forcing people to be politically correct instead of looking at the science behind it, because the science doesn't support it. We've got too many things that we need to do, and one more burden when we're already. Schools become more political indoctrination than anything else. One more. No, we need to unburden. We need to get rid of that stuff. We need to go back to tracking children according to their ability, so that the fast children can be successful, and the slow children can get special and tailored help that they need. To do anything else, it's child abuse, and you're setting up for failure the fast kids that get bored, and you're putting the slow kids in where they have a hard time and they're not getting the tailored assistance and they feel left behind. You become successful at screwing everybody over.
I'm sorry we got on that tangent. I was trying to say that there are mangas and that type of literature that are based in science, not transgenderism. I didn't mean to bring up that debate.
No, but the idea of burdens. We do not need added burdens and requirements and mandates until we could. If a kid in second grade can read well, can sound out words, if they can do simple math, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and they know you give them a speed drill where you have a single digit number and another one you add or multiply, subtract, whatever. And if they can do 100 problems in 5 minutes, at that point you say, oh, they're successful. Let's move to the next phase. But until they can I've seen sixth graders that can't do speed drills, that they're sitting there trying to count on their fingers because we haven't taught them the basic skills. They come across a complex word and they can't sound it out. We've failed them. We've got sixth graders going into seventh grade and they're still at a second grade reading and math level. So to have another mandate, another requirement, another stupid burden it's criminal, in my opinion, because all you're doing is you're setting up these children for failure.
I mean, what you're talking about, with reading levels of being at a second grade to seventh grade level. While that has been emphasized in the media, most of those children are in what we consider to be special education classrooms. Most of them are pulled out for that English class, and that's actually typically the students that I work with, are the kids that are X many reading levels behind. And to draw in some personal experience with this, we had a kid who just couldn't pick up anything. He was at a second grade reading level. And we started graphic novels as like an initializer. And through that, we found something that had his interest. He really liked horror stories, and we had happened to start him on a scarier manga because we thought he might like it. And with that initialization, we were then able to, he still wanted to read mangas, but he also wanted to start looking at other writing paths. We took him in 8 weeks from a second grade reading level to a 4.5 reading level. And he was a fifth grade student. So, while that's not the case for everyone, it is the case that it can be helpful. And there are studies showing that it can be helpful.
Once again, as I said, when you talk about specialized case by case, especially special needs students, manga could be a valuable tool.
Okay.
Now, if you had set up the debate proposition that manga would be a valuable tool to help people who are having a hard time learning to read, it can be a valuable tool for special needs. It'd be like debating pet therapy for certain classes of people that are certain category of people who've been stressed or whatever. You'd get very little argument.
Mm-hmm.
But when the debate proposition is that it should be taught with other forms in each grade level of school, it's like universal manga for K through 12. Should not happen. We can't do universal phonics and reading and math for K through 12 to a good job. And until we can do the basic job, until they do it properly,
mm-hmm.
We shouldn't be larding on other stuff. We should be figuring out, how do we make schools better? How do we make schools more challenging? Why not have trade tech schools that are challenging to the people who don't want to sit and do an awful lot of book work, and they can do more hands-on? I mean, everybody will talk about how in Germany that college education is free, but the vast number of people don't go to college. The vast number of people go into a trade tech, and only those that are identified as collegiate material go to college, and then it's free. Well, if we ended up adopting the German model, you tell 3/4 of the students, guess what? You ain't going to go to college. We're going to teach you a trade tech. They'd revolt, because everybody thinks, well, I'm entitled to go to college. It should be free. And when I get a Bachelor of Arts in some indoctrinated stuff of ethnic studies or women's studies or Shakespeare in the movies, some silly degree that's totally useless when they get to the working world, and yet somehow they feel that they're entitled to be making $70,000 or $80,000 a year starting salary. And when they're surprised that all they can do is get a job at McDonald's, making $9 an hour, even with a degree, they're feeling cheated. Well, guess what? The school system robbed them blind because they never taught them that if you want to have certain high-level jobs that pay well, you need to get math and science. You need to go STEM. You can make good money if you go into the trade tech stuff. If you go into other areas, or you fail to get a good education, or you get a pretend education based on graphic novels and manga, you might only be fit to work in the fast food industry. We don't teach kids that.
Mm-hmm. So on your point of it not being able to help the whole, if your beliefs, though, are correct, that we as a whole education system are falling behind, and that everybody is slower because of the education system, then why would this not have the same effect on children outside of the special needs program if it does inside? if your beliefs are correct, that everybody is behind. And
you cannot use generalizations for specifics. Okay, we can use a generalization to take a look and say that some people might be helped by manga.
mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, I can say that the school systems are failing, but there are bright kids that will succeed in spite of a crappy school system. Okay, you also have private schools, you have charter schools, and you have home schools. And when you get private, charter, and home schools, you get more parental involvement. And with more parental involvement, you've got kids that are being targeted by their parents to say, you need to work harder, you need to be successful. Take a look at Dr. Ben Carson,
Mm-hmm.
okay, the famous pediatric neurosurgeon. Okay, he grew up with a mom who had a third grade education, functionally illiterate, really couldn't read. After three grades, you'd think that she'd be able to read basic stuff. She couldn't read, but she forced her kids to read books, and she forced them to write book reports, and she would pretend to read it and scan and kind of go, oh, and she motivated her kids to be successful in spite of being in inner city schools. So you're going to have rays of sunshine getting through in spite of society's attempt to cripple them and hold them down.
Mm. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather right now.
Summer cold, huh?
Huh?
Summer cold?
It had some,
allergies?
Yeah, allergies. Brain's a little fuzzy. It's okay. With this though, I mean there is a proven margin of it helping reading instruction. And you are right on parental involvement as well. There is a proven margin. So where you're saying burden, I'm wondering if we really want schools to improve, why aren't we looking at all of the things that are providing exceptional margins?
If you want schools to improve, first thing you need to do is you need to give parents more control. We could have a whole debate on the fact that right now, leftists in this country are totally and completely opposed to school choice. You have bad school systems, and it's impossible to fire an incompetent teacher. You get teachers that don't make an effort to motivate children. Okay, there might be a great teacher that would theoretically bring in graphic novels and manga as a way of reading, and that's an innovative way, and they may find that, hey, 1/3 of my class will take on to this and bring it in, and it's a 1-hour session, and they may light the fire for a few kids. But, the bad teachers who do nothing, they're boring, staid, and kids hate the time in class, and parents know that when my kid gets assigned to that teacher, it's going to be a wasted year. Parents might go, hey, school system, I don't want my kid taking that teacher. You should fire that teacher. If parents had choice, it's like, I'm pulling my kid out of this school system. I'm going to put him in this other school system where they've got teachers that inspire and teachers that do more stuff and teachers that are fun and kids look forward to going to school. But leftists do not want school choice. They don't want to empower parents to be able to pull their kids out of government indoctrination systems, because leftists are basically, they're being bribed with donations from unions, and unions extract union dues from the good teachers and the bad alike, and they donate to leftist causes. They donate in such a way that the laws prevent them from firing incompetent teachers. Read about New York City and their rubber rooms, where you get a teacher that's potentially identified as possibly having done illegal behavior. It may take them 10 years to fire, and that teacher reports to a room and does nothing, has no interaction with kids, but for 10 years draws a salary. And our school systems are paying for it. The taxpayers are paying for it. You want to improve school systems? Give parents choice, give them vouchers, and allow them to move around. And parents will find, and you may find that you personally could set up a classroom that uses manga as part of your stuff. And you may find out that there are kids that otherwise are having problems, and you might have parents flocking to your classroom because their kid needs what you have to offer. That's what the free market is about. And right now, our school systems are anything but free market. And that's why they don't have to improve, because they'll get paid no matter whether they improve or not.
Mm-hmm. Not because we're running out of time, not to stretch too much into that debate, but looking at the practical application of these schools, up to now, they just haven't been successful. I mean, they are providing less than the current public school education, and that's not...
Who is providing less than the current public school education?
Charter schools and magnet schools.
I disagree. Well, magnet schools are still public schools. Okay, magnet schools are devices are contrived by the public school system as a SOP. Okay, parents don't really have that much of a choice. Okay, when you have private schools where parents are pulling their kids out of public school, mm-hmm. and they're paying some of their own salary, private schools tend to be fairly successful. Mm-hmm. Homeschools tend to be extremely successful because parents are really making a sacrifice in order to make sure that their kid gets what they want. I personally know people who will do like K through 6 or K through 8 mm-hmm. education, homeschooled, and when they get into public school, they're ready to read and write and work at a collegiate level. Mm-hmm. They're very successful, and there's no reason that you could not create school systems that had vouchers. I mean, consider it. Right now, we have food stamp program, mm-hmm. and people who get food stamps, and food is a basic essential. There are people, I don't have money, I'm going to starve to death, so we give them food stamps. Mm-hmm. Do they go to one store, or do they go to any supermarket that they want?
I mean,
they've got choice. What if we said these food stamps can only be redeemed at a government store, and that government store had the crappiest food selection, and rats ran free, and feces and urine was potentially on cans everywhere? You know, it's like, that's the school system. Mm-hmm. No choice.
Well, to be completely fair, I mean, education isn't the same as a jar of peanut butter. And it should...
It's more important, ultimately. Ultimately, it's more important because you can indoctrinate kids and have a bunch of stupid people that as adults, they don't know better because they were never taught to think for themselves.
So one of the problems that I personally have with the charter school system is what happens with school systems is their funding is based primarily on the number of people in seats. So,
and we've already discussed the fact that right now they're getting double after adjusting for inflation. They're getting double. I mean, imagine the Washington D.C. schools getting $15,000 per school student that's in there. If you take a look and say, I've got a classroom of 20 students, that's $300,000, and the teacher may be making $60,000. Where'd the other $240,000 go? A bloated administrative staff that does nothing to help educate. It's wasted money. A private school system could take $10,000. If you had a voucher, you'd save the taxpayer half the money, and the students the parents could put them in a school where they would actually be competitive to make sure that the kids learn.
Mm-hmm. But as you start to take people out, and basically what you're left with in the public school system is people that cannot pay for the private school systems.
That's where vouchers the money would follow the student, and even the poor parents would be able to move, and that would work. I got news for you.
What happens though when the private school system says, okay, that voucher is good enough, but we're still going to need some money, when there's not regulation approving that? When they say that voucher is not good enough.
The free market will work things out. Okay, it sounds like you don't trust free market forces. You'd rather have government mandates and government regulations. You'd rather have the government control everything. Look at Venezuela. Everything is highly regulated, and they don't have a free market. Would you like to move to Venezuela right now?
I mean, I don't think that's a fair comparison, though.
But the point is, when you decide that the free market. When you decide the free market cannot be trusted and you need government regulations, that's statism. You basically are turning your ability to control your life over to the state.
Mm-hmm.
And that's wrong. It's dangerous.
All right.